Welcome to the stage, Septimus Kane.
Thank you for coming out. I was not sure about the weather actually, whether we get some rain, but... Alright, today we're here to rally against the cost of living crisis. As a young student, I've often wondered what sort of future lies in store for my generation. You have to pick up the pieces of a degenerating society, battling the aftermath of the pandemic and what may be several wars on the horizon. Before the pandemic, I knew who the globalists were and what they planned to do with the economy. It's actually one of the reasons I started a law degree, to learn how to fight back against the system that is actually set up to rob citizens as it redirects cash towards the globalist elites. I'm here today to tell you what is causing the cost of living crisis, which is manufactured. The only way to combat something like this properly is to first understand who is creating the problem. For years, globalists working for the interests of the Chinese Communist Party have not been subtle in their desire to reprogram our economy and create a centralized system of government. The CCP is behind the pandemic we just had, and Fauci, the man who created the pandemic in Wuhan lab, is working with the CCP, as is Bill Gates, who's buying up farmland in the United States. These people control the World Health Organization, which promoted draconian mandates which caused a worldwide recession. During recessions, big fish buy up the assets. In other words, the elites capitalized on the pandemic. They depend upon a destroyed society in order to wage economic grey zone warfare and establish greater political control. Citizens are currently being taxed to death, and these taxes go to a globalist infiltrated government which give aid to transnational entities. It's essentially one big fraudulent operation, and it's been operating like this for decades. Big multinational companies do deals with our government and persuade them to fund them with our tax dollars. And these companies then dictate the narrative, create and instigate problems and economic ruin to then justify how government takes our money to redirect it. These organisations are globalist operated. The WHO, the UN, the Global Fund, and organisations like this, for example, take our tax money and push ridiculous narratives in society that effectively ruin economies. Of course, none of this is prosecuted because it is subtle how they operate. Not so much anymore, but it is subtle before. And secondly, it is challenging to prosecute multinational organisations because they operate cross jurisdiction. If they dictate the narrative, using information warfare, the masses are brainwashed to believe the lies, and thus there's no manpower to even mount prosecutions and no means to see court cases operate fairly. Prices for everything will continue to go up due to inflation, because you can't keep borrowing and printing money out of thin air to combat make-believe problems. If these economic disasters, wars and famines being manufactured by globalists are not called out, citizens will expect the cost of living crisis to increase over time. We need to tackle this issue by going to the root cause of it. Net zero policies pushed by globalist entities are set to see the agricultural sector collapse. It will hurt industries and create food shortages. Prices will increase. Things will get tougher. The globalists rely on dictating the narrative surrounding climate change and epidemics to implement emergency responses which shut down industries. They have control over the universities and the science institutions. Funny that. The Premier of this state is also a globalist puppet tied to the CCP. His recent bill titled the Emergency Management Amendment Bill 2022 passed. Section 77N indicates an officer can make a person submit to infection prevention and control procedures within such reasonable period and in such reasonable manner as specified by the officer. Yes? Section 77Q states that while a COVID declaration is in force, an authorised officer may take or direct a person or class of person to take any action that the officer considers is reasonably necessary to prevent, control or abate risks associated with COVID. This law will be in place for 2 years, but they probably will extend that. This effectively relays broad powers for an officer to take any action necessary to restrict a person. In short, the WA government just enacted legislation which gives them power to do what they please with citizens in the name of an emergency. And we all saw how they handled the last one. The Labor government just secured bilateral relations with the Chinese Communist Party during a meeting in Bali, the G20. Albanese got a picture next to Tedros, the director of the WHO. These globalist puppets dictate Australia, which is not democratic anymore. The WHO or other globalist bodies are set to drive false narratives about our society, which give free rein to governments to then declare emergencies to shut down our economy while the globalists buy up assets. In short, it's a Chinese communist warfare strategy that the West is falling for. Pray for justice and continue to expose the people behind these problems. That's how we will eventually put a stop to the issues properly. Befriend a politician, target the people in defence. Andrew Hastie needs to be aware of all of this. They need to understand how to tackle 21st century problems properly. If we do not understand the times that we're in and the way the Chinese Communist Party operates, they will ravage us in our sleep and they don't need to set foot on our soil to do it. Thank you for listening. God bless.